All right, I'm going to kick off with something a little bit humorous and a bit funny, but then I'm going to shift gears and tell you why this is actually so serious. So all jokes aside, let's take this for what it is. This actually happened, right? Remember, this actually happened. And then I'm going to talk to you about why this matters. So let's take a look.
I learned something new today, everybody. It's perfectly acceptable to identify as a cat. You what? Don't you dare mock it, by the way, because I've decided that is now what I am, meow shell to you. But if you do indeed mock it, careful, because I wouldn't be surprised if it could be considered a hate crime. Self-identity, where do we draw the line? Kids at school being told that they must respect it if this is how their peers seriously want to present themselves. Really? What on earth is going on in our schools? How worried about it should we be? And why are parents not allowed to see the content that children are being taught? Very alarming, if you ask me. And while I've been busy licking milk from saucers, over in Westminster, they've been busy debating parties. It's still going on. No vote as yet. Should it even be voted on? Of course, I'm talking about Boris Johnson. Also, cats can indeed discuss serious things. Mortgage rates at the highest they have been in years. Over 6% now you'll be paying. Should the government intervene? I want to talk as well about the expansion of stop and search and also free speech. Should there be limits? If so, who gets to decide them? And if you breach them, should it be a criminal act?
First of all, I just want to say I'm so relieved when she said the word milk. She said, I'm so busy.
The world is mad.
Yeah.
What did you think she was going to say?
Well, when she said when I'm not busy licking my milk, I thought
she held it nicely. She held it together, reading the teleprompter perfectly. She's a professional.
Yeah.
You know, if you tuned into that and you saw that on television and you kind of heard it in the background, you glanced over and you're like, what is that? What is that woman dressed as a cat? What's going on here? It's ridiculous, right? And it's silly. And she's highlighting the stupidity of society. And I've come to realize after listening to the audiobook, The Puppeteers, that this is ESG. This is environmental, social, and governance. And she's just taking the piss out of it there, making fun of it. But this is the social credit score that we've been talking about, Ed. You know, We've been talking about why and how and central bank digital currencies and why the government wants to control you. But the government's not controlling you. It's the companies that are controlling you, that are dictating diversity and inclusion and all of this bullshit that's going on out there. And she's just highlighting the ridiculousness of it there. So let me just throw to the next report, which kind of highlights exactly what she's talking about in relation to what's going on at schools. And so this goes for a couple of minutes, so just bear with it, but listen very closely to how agitated the teacher gets. So I don't know about you, Ed, but when my kids were little, I taught them to question everything. And as my daughter got bigger and we went through COVID, I taught her to question everything. I maintained the same thing to say, why would they want you to do that? Why are they asking you to do that? Why are they teaching you that at school? And she used to come home and ask me a whole series of questions. Why do I have to learn this? Why am I doing this? None of it's relevant. None of it is this. And you want your children, in my view of parenting, to be curious. Is that the same for you, Ed? Did you teach your boys to be like really curious like that?
Oh yeah. Well, you have to. This is such an important part of parenting. Because these days they're not going to learn it in school. How to think independently. Critical thinking, right? That's not taught at school anymore. So it's got to be taught by the parent. Too many parents, though, do not take the time to teach their children at home. They pawn everything off on the school system to take care of everything. So the school system becomes, their parents in a lot of ways. So yeah.
And this is a deadly thing, right? Because you're, as a parent, competing with social media. You're competing with Snapchat. You're competing with Instagram and all TikTok and all the stuff that's out there. So you when you speak to your kids, you better bloody well be saying something to them that's meaningful and that's helpful and that's useful to them. So I think that's really, really important. And when you listen carefully to the children in this video, you'll hear that they're actually really smart.
Yeah.
And
listen
closely to the teacher who gets really agitated because the children win the debate. All right, let's take a look.
You've just really upset someone. Saying things like should be in an asylum.
I didn't say that. I just said if they want to identify as a cat or something, then they're like genuinely unwell.
And they've gone
they're crazy.
You were questioning their identity.
I wasn't a question. I was just saying about the gender. I haven't said anything about them.
But where did you get this idea from that there's only two genders?
I just think it's my opinion.
That is my opinion.
If I respect their opinion, can't they respect my opinion?
It is not an opinion.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
but
It's not an opinion you
There's
can
only two
have.
genders.
Loads of people think there's only two genders.
There's only a boy and a girl.
Literally. There's
Female,
no other
male.
private part. There's only two.
Gender is not linked to do with not linked
There
to
is
the
only two
parts that
genders.
you were born with. Gender is about how you identify, which is what I said right from the very beginning of the
No, I just don't
lesson.
agree with them. So why should I have to listen to them if I don't agree with it?
Biological sex, there is actually 3 biological sexes, because you can be born intersex. You can be born with male and female body parts or hormones. Yeah, you know that?
Yeah, there's 3. There's not 300.
Doesn't mean
Yeah, there's 3. I'm talking about biological sex. In terms of gender, there are lots of genders.
Well, I just
There is
don't agree with
transgender,
that.
there is agender, people
Yeah,
that
but there
don't
is
believe
that.
they have a gender at all.
yeah, but you can't have that. You
No,
do
you
a
can't
gender.
have that. It's not a law.
Yeah, but
it's not a law, but it's our opinion. We just don't agree with it. We just think it's all just.
if you have a vagina, you're a girl. If you have a penis, you're a boy. That's
Yeah.
it.
But cisgender is not necessarily the way to be. You were talking about the fact that cisgender is the norm, that you identify with the gender of the sexual organs that you're born with,
Yeah.
or you're with. That's
Yeah.
basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
Which is really despicable.
How? When it's
If I
literally
called
true.
my mum right now, my mum would
Same.
feel my side.
If I called my mum, she'd say.
Well, that's very sad as well then.
How is it?
Loads of people agree with that. There's only a small majority of people who actually think that.
And why do you think we have so many problems in the world with homophobia?
Yeah, but
Because
that's
of
not
people
homophobia.
expressing-
that's not
That's
homophobia.
gender.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm
it
fine
is.
with lesbians and gay people.
Same.
I've got nothing against them.
Yeah, same.
But gender there is a link between it, and you're
How?
saying that people
There
can't
isn't
change
No, they
who they want
can't.
to be.
They can't. Unless you
You're
get a
so
penis
wrong.
attached. No, I'm not.
You're confusing sex and gender.
No, I'm not though. Because if
Yes,
you have
you
a
are.
vagina, you're a girl. If you have a penis, you're a boy.
Yeah, you can't have a vagina and be a girl, but then
Gender-
identify
Unless you
as
get
a cat.
separate, and even then,
Gender
because
is
you've got
about
those genes.
how you identity.
I
How
just
you
don't agree with
identify.
it.
Yeah,
But
it's
it's
fine.
not an opinion
Yes,
that
it
we
is.
express in this
Yes, it
school.
is.
No, it's not. And if you don't like it, you need to go to a different school. So
I did go to a
I'm
different
reporting you to Miss Willis. You need to have a proper educational conversation about equality, diversity and
I ain't
inclusion.
doing it. My mum
Because
doesn't
I'm
let
not
me do
having that expressed in my lesson. When I'm teaching you about you can be who you want to be,
Everyone else
how
thinks
you
it.
identify is up to
So
you.
Everyone else thinks it. They just don't say it because then all
Yeah.
this happens.
Maybe because they're polite and maybe they're sensitive.
I haven't said anything in all of the lessons I've been in. It's just because they turned around and started saying something. So I said, how can you identify as a cat when you're a girl?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
they're now writing a statement. I would imagine that you'll be asked to write a statement as well.
We will.
Yeah, we will.
So there you go, Ed. Like, I mean, that's what's going on in schools. That's what that woman who dressed as a cat, the news anchor, she's mucking around saying,
Yeah.
do you know what they're teaching your kids at school? Well, this is a British school, and she's a British news anchor, and
Yep.
you're not allowed to know. You know what? I don't know about you, man. I'm not a proponent of violence, but if somebody was teaching my children that, they'd get a punch in the mouth. And, you know, if you're teaching my teenage daughter or my teenage son about sex, and it's not anything to do with the curriculum, and I don't understand how that is in the curriculum, other than to say it's part of the social credit score, because she said it clearly there for us. She said equity, diversity, and inclusion. She said that. You know, I'm teaching you a lesson about equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so, okay, cool. You're teaching me about that, but why are you teaching me something related to sex? What has that got to do with the inclusion, equity, and diversity? It's got nothing to do with sex. We could have that conversation on about 50 different levels. Why are you always focusing in on sexualizing my children? Why are you doing that? If I found out that there was a teacher at my school where my kids went teaching that, I would immediately withdraw my children from that school, and I would go on social media. I would take 1,000 photos of that person and say, this person is a minor attracted person socializing young pre-teens about sex. Who is that? Who has the right to do that to your children? It is absolutely abhorrent, man. And I'll die on this hill to protect the children, man. I'll die on this hill. I don't care what anybody says, because you'll never get a job in corporate Australia ever again, Rob, because you don't believe in equity, diversity. Good. I never ever want to work in corporate Australia again if that's actually the case. I never ever want to work in a workplace where there's people promoting that vile, disgusting, horrible stuff to children. Sure, you and me can have a conversation. We're grown adults. We can talk about whatever we want. We can agree to disagree, or I can punch you in the mouth, or you can punch me in the mouth. I don't care. Whatever, I'm an adult. But to do that to a child, and then to say to that child that they have to go to another school because they don't agree with the teacher's policy, man, oh man, we are slipping into a socialist, communist, dystopian future, man.
Well, listen, you don't agree with any of this stuff because you are obviously a white supremacist. So you're...
There it is, man. I'm going to end up in jail.
I mean, that's their answer to everything, right? They can't win an argument, so they go right to racism.
She couldn't win the argument.